And I am Manpreet from Department of Anesthesia and GMCH, just a customary to tell. So my topic is difficult extubation guidelines and a case on maxillofacial trauma. I'll take most of things have been covered by Dr. Mohit, but yes, difficult extubation guidelines. The important thing is I give you a dictum. This is a different because the people who have prepared these guidelines, they must have different perception, but I'll teach this lecture as these guidelines as in a different way. So let's see how much I succeed in telling them that intubation is a skill. This is a dictum. Intubation is a skill, but extubation is an art. So this was a guidelines in 2016 they have given in and published in IJA. This is the guidelines you all have seen. Dr. Muid has shown many times in his lecture. But yes, this is a comprises of many things. It's very easy to learn, but it's very easy to remember if you do it day in, day out. So my perception will be, I will divide this guidelines into three parts, three limbs, different limbs, limb 1, limb 2, limb 3. So limb 1, limb 2, and limb 3, this is the way I will take up this lecture. If you see this red ones, red boxes, these are the divisions of this algorithm. And then, okay. Sorry. So these are the three limbs. Then we have a horizontal bar. As soon as you see that the patient is there with the difficult extubation, it is, as Dr. Sheila has told already, that it is always an elective one. So its extubation is elective, and then it is always an anticipated difficult extubation guideline which is given. And if you see this, there is a horizontal bar which has given the three situations how the extubation can be done, which are the various scenarios where the extubation is done. These are the when the airway is normal, when you intubated the patient, the airway was normal and you didn't face any much problems for that. And then there are 4 Ds. If you have faced any problem like difficult mask ventilation, difficult intubation or re-intubation was done, or there was a delayed recovery after the case was over, then difficulty because of pre-existing disease. Then there are 3 S, means that the surgical cause for airway and then compromise. Then there is a suspected airway edema. There is suspected airway collapse. So what you do is you proceed further. Let's take the limb 1 now. Limb 1 is when you have a normal airway. When you intubated the patient had normal airway. The patient conditions now requires the suppression of the hemodynamic responses during the extubation. So here you have to decide whether it is you have to do the awake extubation or you have to do the deep extubation. So if the awake extubation is done, then it is with the pharmacological attenuations. And if there is a deep extubation, then you have certain procedures which you have to do with the supraglottic airway device exchange. So deep versus awake extubation, this is a point to decide here. Then awake extubation, there is a return of airway tone, reflexes, and respiratory drive, and patient maintains own airway, and so it is safe generally. A deep extubation is there is a reduction of coughing, bucking, and risk of laryngospasm and hemodynamic effects of the tube movement, but there is an increased risk of aspiration and upper airway obstruction. It requires expertise, mind it, and advanced techniques are required. Awake extubation is a normal extubation which you do day in, day out. Perform the awake extubation with pre-oxygenate with 100% oxygen, suction as appropriate, insert a bite block, position the patient appropriately, and antagonize the neuromuscular blockade with the reversal agent adequately, then establish the regular breathing, ensure the adequate spontaneous ventilation, minimize the head and neck movements, then wait until the patient is awake. Awake means here is eye opening or obeying the commands. And then apply the positive airway pressure, deflate the cuff, remove the tube towards the chest, and then provide 100% oxygen. Here I will add one more thing. You can always add a bit of Larson's maneuver, that is the jaw thrust you can give for a brief few seconds of 5 to 7 seconds, because it will help always to prevent the laryngospasm. And then check airway patency, put the circuit there, and adequacy of the breathing. Deep extubation is when the extubation is with the exchange of endotracheal tube with the supraglottic airway device. Here you use any of the supraglottic airway device. People are using different supraglottic airway device. People have started with LMA Classic till today with the preformed shaped blockbusters and LMA protectors. They are using it, and LMA is inserted in what is a procedure which is called called as Bailey's maneuver. That is LMA mask exchange procedure is there, which is called as Bailey's maneuver in the extubation. What do you do is LMA is inserted behind the endotracheal tube. Once in place, the cuff is inflated and endotracheal tube cuff is deflated and endotracheal tube is removed. It maintains the patency of the airway, unstimulated airway with stable physiology, and then protects the airway from soiling from blood and secretions. This gives a beautiful extubation system whenever you do this Bailey's maneuver, but it is an art. You have to practice so that the patient does not go in the plane of anesthesia is always important whenever you do this Bailey's maneuver. Now it benefits in the smokers, asthmatics, in the neurosurgery patients. You can do in the irritable airways. You can use in the patients where the endotracheal tube is may cause the bronchospasm or laryngospasm later on. So it gives a smooth extubation you can do with the Bailey's maneuver. Then this is the photograph which shows when you put the LMA behind the endotracheal tube, and then you take the endotracheal tube out and then you ventilate through the LMA. Then you combine the LMA with fiber optic. This is another technique. There are limitations of fiber optic. There can be excessive secretions, coughings, then swallowing, or there can be poor tolerance results in poor visualization of structures. There can be limitations of LMA alone. So the combination has advantages. When you use both of the things together, then the oxygen and volatile anesthetic concentrations can be given continuously with the controlled anesthesia. Vocal cord movements can be seen. Let me tell you, this technique can be beautiful. One biggest example of extubation is when you use in the thyroid surgeries. When the extubation is done and during the thyroid surgery, the surgeon wants to see the movement of the vocal cords. Then at that time, after giving the reversal, you can initially put the LMA and then you take out the endotracheal tube. Then you show the reversal, you give the reversal, and then you show the movements of the vocal cords to the surgeon. He will also be satisfied, and then you do the smooth extubation over the supraglottic airway device. So these are this technique can be used there also. So this is how it shows. Now the other limb. Now the second part is the limb 2, which is the difficult mask ventilation. Remember 4Ds. The patient has preoperatively difficult mask ventilation, difficult intubation, or intubation was done, or there is a delayed recovery after the surgery is over, and then difficulty because of pre-existing disease. So what is most important here is keep the difficult airway cart ready. This is the difficult airway cart. You can see it contains of many drawers. I have just deliberately kept the few slides of this. It has many drawers in this. The left side one I had prepared when I was in the Delhi, and I was working in UCMS, and there I prepared this myself with my own designing. And then these are the various difficult airway cart constituents. If you see that it has a different blades, it has a different face mask, it has endotracheal tubes of different types and sizes, then McGill forceps, then there are endotracheal tube guides that is, you can have searchlight or light vents or bougies. Then we have laryngeal mask airways or supraglottic airway devices. Then fiber optic is hanging on the one side of the difficult airway cart. And then we have the retrograde intubating equipment also, as Dr. Sheila has said, that this is, although this technique is going to be used very less, but at least you should perform this technique to have the completion of your own skills, so that you can use this skill in certain set of patients where it can be done. Then transtracheal jet ventilation is put in one of the drawers of lowest one is containing this transtracheal jet ventilation. This can be used as while you're doing the cricothyroidotomies. And then suggested contents of this are the tracheostomies and emergency surgical airway equipment, which you can use. Nowadays, we have the different sets which are available already in the market. Then we have the video laryngoscopes. These video laryngoscopes have a special hold now, and they are in all the guidelines. They are used as the first option, and they are put in the, and at all times whenever you're going to do the intubations, then you can use the video laryngoscopes. So there are different video laryngoscopes. So this is the red square which I am telling you. Keep the difficult airway cart ready. When the patient is fully awake and obeying the commands, do the recruitment of lung if not contraindicated. Supplement the oxygenation throughout, and whenever you see that through endotracheal tube during extubation, extubate over the airway exchange catheter or fiber optic. Now let me discuss with this what are the difficult this airway exchange catheters are there. Slide is stuck. Just hold on. Now, yeah. So first of all, I should discuss certain. These are the extubation aids. That gum elastic bougie is there. This is a narrow diameter tracheal tube introducer with an outer diameter of 5 millimeters. So if you see the photographs in the right side, it is made of beige colored resin covering a fiberglass core. Total length is 60 centimeters. Why this is 60 centimeters? It is double the length of endotracheal tube. Whenever you put the bougie inside the endotracheal tube, then you take out the endotracheal tube, then there should be adequate amount of length which should be covering with the bougie, so that the endotracheal tube can be taken out very smoothly. So there is a bend of 38 degrees, which gives you the access to the anterior larynx, and bougie is flexible there. That's why, but has some shape retention. That's why it is very beautifully used in these type of procedures. Then we have Mises, the obturator. It comes in two sizes of 70 to 80 centimeter. Rest of things are similar, but yes, you can use this. Then the most important thing which is available in the market is Cook's airway exchange catheter. It is a ventilating, or it is a hollow tube with the, you can do the oxygenation through this, and it is a hollow stillet. Sizes comes in different French, and then 8 Frenches for 45 centimeter length, and rest are the 83 centimeters. And it's a radio opaque and having markings between 15 to 30 centimeters from the distal end. 2 distal side holes and 1 side end side hole is there for ventilation. And there is a proximal end which has a RapiFit adapter. You can see in the second photograph, easily, securely added, and it can be removed easily. The endotracheal tube can be removed. Lever lock fitting for the jet ventilation is there, and 15 mm connector for the manual ventilation. So this connector can be removed easily. And what you do is you put the this Cook's airway exchange catheter through the endotracheal tube during extubation. Then take the endotracheal tube after removing of this connector adapter, and then you take the endotracheal tube. Then again fit the this connector, and then you see the ventilation. Although it has a small hole hollow, therefore the resistance can be more, but it gives a ventilation or oxygenation throughout. So it's a safe technique, and you should have a practice of using Cook's airway exchange catheter. Then the third limb in this algorithm is 3S. This is surgical cause for airway compromise. There can be, if you are having a suspected airway edema or suspected airway collapse. So you have already kept your difficult airway cart ready during the extubation. Consider the leak test on the ventilator now. Whether the leak is present or leak is absent or equivocal. What is leak test? Leak test is a cuff leak test, simple method to predict the occurrence of post-extubation stridor or other complications. What you do is deflate the cuff of the endotracheal tube, measure the expired tidal volume a few breaths later, and then leak is defined there with the difference between the expired tidal volume with or without deflated cuff. If there is a leak test is present, then lung recruitment is done. If not contraindicated, 100% oxygen is given at that time. Extubate over the airway exchange catheter, bougie, or in the OT or in the HDO or ICU. Dr. Sheila has rightly told it is always a safe environment for the extubation. What important is you should have a skill of extubation. If obstruction is present, then re-intubate and then do the tracheostomy later on. The leak test is either if absent or it is equivocal, then there can be delayed extubation, and post-operative ventilation or breathe spontaneously, it is to be taken care of. Then lung recruitment, if not contraindicated, give 100% of oxygen. If there is suspected airway collapse, then if you think that airway collapse will be there, then extubate with the inhalational agents on. So it will be a deep extubation with AEC or Guji or Cook's airway in the OT when spontaneously breathing. If airway obstruction is present, then re-intubate again over the airway exchange catheter. You can always see that these extubating aids have the advantage that always you can re-intubate over that with the railroading of the endotracheal tube. Then later on, tracheostomy can be done with that if it is a re-intubation situation is there. Use steroids at this time. Yes, you can use steroids if there is a possibility of difficult extubation, or if you think that extubation can, the patient has the laryngeal edemas or other things. Post procedure plan is always there in this algorithm, is given the last with the blue ones. This is a treat the airway edema if suspected. So if there is a airway edema you have suspected before, then treat it, then monitor for any complication, then counseling and documentation. Remember this, counseling and documentation is very important. If you have not documented, you have not done it. Then whatever is you have done, document it. Then you remember this, that whatever you document, this will save you in the court of law later on also. And also it will be advantageous for the patient in the next surgery, whenever he or she will be getting the surgery done in her or his lifetime. Then at that time, this documentation will always help for the other people also. So other airway guidelines are also there in this. These are the DAS guidelines. They have the basic algorithm of plan, prepare, and they have stratified the risk, low risk or at risk. And then they have given the separate algorithm for low risk. And then they have the given for at risk algorithm. And then the patient is shifted to recovery or HDO or ICU. This is a low risk algorithm of plan, prepare, optimize the patient, and then select the deep or awake extubation. Similarly, but I must say that you all must read this IDA guidelines in conjunction with the text which is given in that article, because that text has many minute things, details, which are given in not in the algorithm, but they are written there in detail. So it will be complete if you read the algorithm with the in conjunction with the text in the 2016 IJA guidelines. Then these guidelines, IDA guidelines, are almost complete. I don't find anything they will change, and I am yet to know what they will change in the next coming 2021. And I am eager to know about Dr. Sheila, because these people are dynamic people and they have many things in their minds and collectively work as a team and must be having some different ideas of coming in the new algorithms. Then aims during extubation are assess the patient preoperatively thoroughly, do the intubation normal or difficult. See that whether it is a normal intubation or difficult. Assess the intubation time difficulties faced before going for the extubation. Decide when to extubate, early extubation or delayed extubation. Decide how to extubate, whether which method you want to do, awake extubation or deep extubation. Then perform the leak test, leak present or leak absent or equivocal, or whether learn the extubation with different techniques. Smooth extubation is always desired as it is an elective thing. Do not hurry during the extubation. Prepare your these difficult airway card. Get ready with the call for help. Always take an expert people along with you. Then you do the extubation. So I'm rightly convinced you now that intubation is a skill, but extubation is an art. Here I want to ask Dr. Sahu and my chairpersons whether I should continue with this, because I will discuss in brief. Already we are late. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Manpreet. I think this will really benefit the students, and then we'll take the discussion at the end.
Yeah. So airway management in maxillofacial trauma. This is the cases which are given. This is the basic case. I will take a small case. A 40 years male had a road traffic accident with fracture of maxillofacial segments. Mouth opening was approximately 2 centimeters, and the reconstruction surgery was planned for them. So these type of patients, if you see that, whether this patient, or these type of this patient, you can see that these type of patients are day in, day out, you will get in the trauma scenarios always. And then these are the cases which you see. So what is the plan of airway management? I have to discuss here. This can be divided into pre-hospital airway management or in-hospital airway management. Whether you are in the outfield postings or you are in the inside the hospital postings, you can be you have to do the airway management there only. So then in hospital, you always plan for the plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. And if I discuss this case simply, what are the problems? There can be difficult mask ventilation, difficult laryngoscopy, difficult supraglottic, and there can be difficult intubation, or there can be later on, it can be the difficult extubation also when the intubation is difficult. So the polytrauma cases usually come with these type of problems with fracture cervical spine, which is the most important thing to be taken care of in these things. There can be tension pneumothorax in these patients also, which add on to the airway difficulties. Then there can be solid organ injuries, traumatic brain injuries, there can be pelvic fractures, or there can be cardiac tamponade. Why I have mentioned these things here is because whenever you encounter with the trauma patient with airway difficulties, airway management is important, but these things are also to be taken care of because these adds on the difficulties to all the airway management techniques. The caveats for airway management are there can be airway disruption or there can be obstruction, which leads to hypoxia very soon. Then multiple injuries or polytrauma may cause pneumothorax. There can be head injury or cervical spine injury. So whether the patient was having helmet or not, then there can be hypovolemic shock or neurogenic shock to that patient. So there can be bleeding profusely. There can be full stomach. These patients are considered mostly full stomach, so the chances of aspiration are also there. There can be intoxication of alcohol at many times or other drugs. Then there are difficult airway or normal airway. But at these situations, when the patient comes with a trauma, even the normal airway can become the difficult airway. So you have to do the resuscitation, you have to do the give the anesthesia properly, analgesia, and then intensive care suits are also ready for that. So in pre-hospital airway management, always go with the primary survey of ATLS guidelines. A, B, C, D, and E. You always remember this. Airway maintenance with cervical spine control. B is breathing with ventilation properly. Then circulation with hemorrhage control. D is disability, and then E is the exposure. These are the life-threatening conditions, and these are identified and managed spontaneously. Basic airway maneuvers you have to remember. I'll teach you later on. The MILS is the one thing which you should remember. Manual inline stabilization. Manual inline stabilization, you can see the photographs. You can see people do in different ways. But yes, the main aim is that you have to cover the neck like this, that you have to hold the neck and the cervical spine like this, that the movement of the cervical spine should be minimum to no. So this is the basic aim of this MILS. This is a manual inline stabilization. If you don't have in the pre-hospital system, if you have the multiple people with the many people with the, then one person can hold the neck like shown in the photograph, and the other person can do the intubation or other mask ventilations or anything which is required. Second thing is if you are alone, then you can put the two different, even people have used in the pre-hospital care, the bricks with the covered with the cloth on both the sides, so that you have to try the minimum possible movements. Some people have used the pillows or donates on both the sides. So, but it is according to the resources. If you are with the advanced ambulances, then you can use your cervical collars also. Mind it, cervical collars do not give 100% guarantee of movement stoppage. But yes, it will prevent your movements to do the to have the privilege of the extra movements which you do during the intubation. That is prevented with the cervical spine injury. Cervical collars. Then there is another maneuver which is Sellick's maneuver in these type of patients to prevent the aspiration. This is the cricoid pressure. It is given the pressure backwards and posteriorly with the two fingers, index finger and the middle finger, and the thumb with the assistant. Assistant gives this and holds the on the cricoid and puts the pressure posteriorly. The documentation of the procedure is pressure is 10 newtons to 30 newtons. It increases. The main aim is that it is the cervical spine, the Celix maneuver is to prevent the aspiration from the esophagus. That much of pressure is applied that you can prevent the content of the stomach to enter into the trachea. So that is the amount of pressure which is applied. So this your assistant will do, and rest of the procedure will be done by the airway manager. Airway management in hospital, you have to clear the cervical spine without the radiology or with radiology. If there is no facility immediately of radiology or it's taking time, then you can see if there is no posterior midline tenderness or full range of movement is there, or there is GCS is 15, no intoxication is there, no neurodeficit, no painful injury, then you can always do the take the privilege of cervical spine movement. Then in ED, immediate availability of expert people are there. You have to do that. Call the people immediately. Difficult airway equipment is to be ready and do the optimal management of airway. Rapidly, you have to assess the difficulties, whether the patient has difficult mask ventilation, supraglottic, laryngoscopy. Then there can be rescue techniques, whether you are ready for that. Mills is to be done and surgical access is to be seen in all the patients. Plan and prepare rapid sequence intubation with Mills and cricoid pressure. Further management, RSI, rapid sequence intubation, is the gold standard. You can see that there can be given a normal dose of, if normotensive is their patient, then the use of thiopentone sodium or you can use the propofol also nowadays people are using, with the standard doses of induction agent, standard dose of succinylcholine, and then use the adjuvant. You can use that adjuvant and then you intubate immediately with modified, without giving or giving 3 to 4 puffs, keeping in view that patient may be the full stomach. If hypotensive is there, patient is hypotensive, then use the ketamine or etomidate, then use dexamethasone and fluid bolus can be administered. Vasopressors can be used if required at that time. There are 7 P's of RSI. These are the preparation and plan, pre-oxygenation, pre-treatment. This pre-oxygenation, I must tell you one thing. These IDA guidelines have beautifully given the pre-oxygenation and oxygenation continuously through, this is called a para-oxygenation, throughout the procedure of intubation or doing any maneuvers of the airway. You have to continuously give the oxygen through the nasal cannulas or through the nasal prongs, or you have to give through the different techniques Dr. Mohit has already mentioned. And there can be paralysis with standard dose of induction, protection and positioning, and then placement with the proof and post-intubation care. Then there can be airway compression in these type of patients. There can be traumatic injury to face, maxilla and mandible. You never know what injuries the patient has. So there can be life-threatening obstruction. Yes, then do the surgical airway straightforward. If not life-threatening, able to clear the airway, then or no difficult airway issue, you can use a awake fiber optic because you have the time there. Then we have airway disruption, which can be there. There can be major laryngeal tracheal tears. If so, then do the awake techniques. If there is a small lesions or supralaryngeal disruptions are there, then RSI plus minus modified RSI can be used. Always remember that you have to use as far as the patient has a spontaneous ventilation, you are safe. Various options to aid the intubation in these type of patients are direct laryngoscopy and tracheal intubation, then video laryngoscopy and intubation. In cervical spine injuries also, you can use video laryngoscopes with the blades, different blades. These are beautiful devices. Practice these devices as much as you can, because if you get these devices, always try to intubate with them at the first choice. Then fiber optic tracheal intubation, then you can use intubating through the intubating SADs. This means that you have certain like Embu Aura Gain, you have the intubating laryngeal tube suction device, you have AirQ family SP. You can use these devices because you can intubate through them. If you put this at that time of crisis as a rescue, even you have to put the supraglottic airway device. What you can do is you can put these supraglottic airway devices, and then with the fiber optic, you can intubate through that supraglottic airway devices. Your airway is secured, you can intubate, then you take the supraglottic airway device after putting the endotracheal tube and secure it for the longer time. Till then also you can do the tracheostomy if you get the time for that with the after putting the supraglottic airway device. Then retromolar scopes can be used because sometimes there are trauma and mouth opening is very less. You can use the retromolar scopes. These are from the Karl Storz people. They give this retromolar scope. You can always use as far as the mouth opening it requires is only for which the endotracheal tube can go. That is the amount of mouth opening is required. And then nasal intubation. Remember this, in nasal intubation in trauma patients, you have to careful about the contraindications of nasal intubation also. And secondly, you have to take care of the, I tell you one thing, that nasal spurs. There are certain cases found now that pre-operatively, if there is a time for these reconstruction surgeries, then always get the CT scan or MRI of the nasal cavity also. Because there can be nasal spurs in the nasal cavities, and whenever you put the endotracheal tube through that, your cuff of the endotracheal tube gets damaged easily, but you don't know the cause. So that's why it helps in some cases. So then there are another technique which is light band or track light. Previously, when I was in Aligarh with Dr. Mohit, we used to do with Dr. Rashid these type of case. Light band was so handy with us that we used to do daily, day in, day out with the light bands. And I still remember those days. And this light band is a beautiful device. This is a lighting stillet basically. There is a light in front of the stillet. You can see in the this picture. And whenever you put blindly you put the endotracheal tube in situ with the when it is put over the light band, and then with the hockey stick shape, and then you enter into the esophagus or into the trachea. When it is in the trachea, then it is a bright glow. When it is in the esophagus, it's a diffuse glow. So it was a beautiful device at that time. But nowadays we have the video laryngoscopes and other things. So these devices are in the backseat now. So retrograde intubation, tracheal intubation, yes, I have already told you, you should always practice at least at some times you can require these type of techniques in the trauma patients. This technique, I will not go into the detail. And then other methods of establishing airway are, we have the various supraglottic airway devices as rescue you can use, because intubation is the basically thing in the trauma patient you should do as early as possible, because later on there can be airway edema. Then the supraglottic will not work and your airway will be lost. And at that time, the patient will desaturate as early as possible. If you're not able to do complete ventilation failure, yes, CICO, some people have used in the different guidelines, but yes, IDA has given a beautiful term of complete ventilation failure. So the dictum is open the neck now. How to do that? Dr. Mohit has already told. It can be due to cricothyroidotomy. There can be invasive airway access or TTJV can be used with that. And there can be cricothyroidotomy. There are sets available in the market now. You can always use that. Or there can be needle cricothyroidotomy, or there can be Seldinger's wire technique. And there are wide bore cannula techniques also. Quick track, it is available with VPM company. Then there can be definitive airway surgical cricothyroidotomies, and scalpel cricothyroidotomy is one technique which IDA has given this technique. Stab, twist, bougie, and tube. This technique has been given in these guidelines, and Dr. Mohit has already told you in detail. I will not go into that. And this is a beautiful technique. Yes, what I should say is I have done it twice. Am I lucky, fortunate, or I am unfortunate? I don't know. But I was stuck with my senior resident and I was called in the OT, and I had to do this in the ENT OT because I had a backup of ENT surgeon. But yes, I did this deliberately after these guidelines when I had read before. But I think I am fortunate to do this technique twice. Submental intubation we have done in many dental oromaxillofacial surgeries. This we have done, and this is another technique which gives good space to the surgeon, and then the endotracheal intubation can be done. This is how it comes out through that. And then video laryngoscopes, I have already told you, use these video laryngoscopes as far as possible, because these need only that much of mouth opening, through which the video laryngoscope blade enters into it. So remember this, you will be very happy to use the D blade of the video laryngoscope. But remember this, what are the troubleshoots of using that also? Don't get stuck with the fascinated equipments of video laryngoscopes, but you should know each and everything about that. Alternatives to direct laryngoscopy can be fiber optic also. And let me now tell you the approach to the maxillofacial trauma. First of all, call for the help. And these all maxillofacial trauma requires definitive airway management. So the patient is either stable or patient is unstable. This means stable means you have the time, and scenario is such like that the patient is either cooperative or non-cooperative. If the patient is cooperative, then you can do the awake direct laryngoscopy or video laryngoscopy or fiber optic or awake Pune, because the patient is stable, you have the time. If patient is not cooperative, then you can do a trial of facilitate the cooperation with the patient. Patient becomes cooperative sometimes after telling everything to the patient, how we do it and what are the dangers of this problem of that situation. Then if it is the patient is still not cooperative, then you have to do the RSI with the double setups, and plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D can be done. Then second limb is that if the patient is unstable, this means you don't have the time. You have to do as fast as possible, do the RSI, and then do the intubation plans at that time. Another is the laryngotracheal trauma patients. You have to approach, call for help. Then these also require the definitive airway management as early as possible. Call for help, caution with these positive pressure ventilations, or the blind PUJI or endotracheal intubation can be used at this. You have to be conscious using these techniques. Then if the patient is stable here, then cooperative, then similarly use the awake fiber optic or awake tracheostomy. Or the patient is non-cooperative, facilitate the cooperation, trials is given, becomes the cooperative, then you can do the similarly things which I have told you. And if the patient is not cooperative now, again you can use the video laryngoscope assisted fiber optic also. If the patient is unstable, you do not have the time, these scenarios you can use always the RSI. Remember one thing also, if you have the time, then you can use a double combination technique also with video laryngoscope and fiber optic together. With this, what happens is, if you have a practice of this, you do in your routine theaters also, do the video laryngoscopy and put the endotracheal tube through this fiber optic, because it gives a beautiful view of the larynx, and you can easily put through the video laryngoscope. There are certain situations where the larynx is not easily visible or there is a bleeding. Both these combination techniques can be used at that time to have the great success. So thanks and best of luck for your exams. And I am thankful to my chairpersons, Dr. Sheila and Dr. Rakesh must be there. So I think Dr. Ashish Kanodia, and then and Dr. Mohit for our patient listening there. Thank you, all of you, and best of luck.